Hello and welcome.
Hello.
Very first Proper Good Bolton podcast.
I know, exciting.
Very exciting. I'm Lisa and I am, it seems, going to be the host of these podcasts, which is a whole new string to my bow, but I'm excited about it. I'm just going to do a quick introduction and then I'm going to introduce you. So for anyone who's watching who doesn't know, Proper Good is a programme of support and social investment for social enterprises, social economy organisations, and that means charities, co-ops, socially minded businesses, all those amazing organisations that do wonderful work to both make money and have a social impact in Bolton. So we offer workshops, mentoring, networking, all that kind of stuff, events, to support those organisations to thrive, because we know that when those organisations in our town are doing well, then our town is a wonderful place for everyone to work and be.
That is true.
So that's what Proper Good is. It's hosted by Bolton CVS and I'm the project coordinator for that. And this is the first of a series of podcasts that we're starting as a way for us to try and tell the story of our sector, those organisations, try and talk about what the challenges are, what the opportunities are, meet some of the leaders and inspirational people in our sector, and just try and sort of share and shout about all the wonderful work that's happening from all of those organisations and the Proper Good programme. So this is our first toe in the water into that, and I'm really excited that you are our first guest. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm really excited that I'm your first guest.
Yeah.
I'm Maura Jackson. I'm the Chief Exec of BackUp Northwest, and we are a homeless charity based in Bolton. We accommodate and support 106 young people at any one time. So all of the client group we work with are all aged between 16 and 25. They are homeless or, imminent risk of homelessness. And that can range from, rough sleeping, sofa surfing, unstable accommodation, etc., etc. From any sort of background, really. But 30% of the young people that end up with us have come through the care system, have experienced at some time either, through children's homes, foster care, etc., kinship care. And then the rest, the other 70%, is a mix of young people that have experienced trauma, family breakdown, conflicts at home, some kind of incident or exploitation. It could just be that the young people are living in a situation that's not safe for them and it's not their doing, so the parents are involved in difficult situations, offending, drug use, severe mental health, etc. Either way, that's not our business. Our business is about, is the young person at risk? Are they homeless? Do they need us? Yes, they do. They're in. So we've been running for 33 years in Bolton. We were set up here in 1992 and we have just grown and grown and grown and grown. We've both grown in terms of volume and the numbers of young people can help, but also in terms of the quality and what's on offer to each young person when they're with us. So I'm well chuffed to be the first guest on your Proper Good podcast because, as you know, I think Proper Good is proper good. Yeah. So I want to... Are you all right, Jo? I want to... support you as well through CVS. You're part of the infrastructure that supports our sector, and we've benefited from that. And if we benefit, then the young people benefit. So if I can share that story, then it might enable someone else to give it a go as well. We might be thinking about it.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and that's really lovely to hear actually, because that's in our role at Bolton CVS and all the local infrastructure organisations. You can sometimes feel. I think of it as like we help the helpers, and you can feel a bit far away from actually the frontline work. But you're right, definitely, certainly our aim is both through the Proper Good programme and the wider work of Bolton CVS.
I know how that feels because as the chief exec of an organisation, sometimes even I feel far away from the front line. Yeah. And, having come from that background in my career, I've come from the front line and been a support worker for many years. But I do know that every bit I do will influence or impact what other people are doing, and you're doing that, but your backup's backup, aren't you? Yeah. Making sure that the infrastructure and that the connections are there with other organisations, or, that we know about funding that's available or opportunities, and just communicating with other people, and it helps our sector as a whole to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that connection and collaboration bit is a huge bit of what we're trying to do through Proper Good. And that's a huge point of this podcast, that it's another way for us to kind of share the story, share everyone's stories and connect people. When did you join BackUp? How long have you been CEO? What attracted you initially?
Well, I've been the CEO since the 5th of March 2012. It is nearly my 13th anniversary.
Wow.
But before that, I worked there as a support worker in 1997.
I didn't know that.
So I went there for 2.5 years. So I'd been worked in housing, worked at Fort Alice, and then I thought, right, I want to work with young people. That was my goal. And then got this support worker's job. There were 5 staff that worked there. We had 20 young people living in 10 two-bedroomed houses. So we had 10 young people each, me and another support worker, Linda. And that was it. We had a manager and an admin, and we just cracked on.
Really shows the scale of growth that you were talking about. Yeah.
So then 20 odd years later, when the director was retiring, 18 different people either emailed me, rang me, or texted me and said, do you know that this job's going to be vacant? Do you know this job's being advertised? Do you know about this job? And I thought, wow, if that isn't a sign, then I don't know what is. And at the time I was working in London. I was the chief executive of a domestic abuse charity in West London. And my granddaughter had been born the year before. And I had been thinking about coming back to Bolton because obviously the centre of the universe was around her. And I thought, how do I get back home? But it had to be the right job. So I already knew this was the right job. I'd worked here before. I loved it. And I was going to come back and help it to grow even further. So when I came back in March, I was staff member number 13. So we had 13 colleagues, and we were supporting 33 young people then. We had 25 flats, and we had a house on Castle Street where 8 young people lived in a shared home. And then it was like, right, well, it needs to grow, needs to be sustainable. We had one income stream, which was a local authority grant, so all eggs in one basket, so to speak, quite risky. And I just thought, right, what can I do? And I rang my mum up. I said, they've offered me that job, but the organisation where I was in London was bigger, and I'd grown that as well. I'd trebled the size of that while I worked there in 3 years. And I said to her, we're going back to a smaller organisation. And she just said, well, grow it then. You've done it before, do it again.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, well, it sounds easy when you say it like that, All right then.
Just grow it.
All right then, I will. So I thought, okay. And that's exactly what I did. So I came back, and obviously the rest is history. But in the 13 years I've been here, we have quadrupled the size of the organisation.
Well, I'm really interested in that, because Proper Good's all about sort of supporting organisations in our sector whose driving sort of mission is around their social impact, and often that bit around trading, diversifying income streams, public sector contracts, that whole bit can feel really overwhelming for some organisations, because that's often not why people get into our game.
No.
It's not about making money for making money's sake, is it? But as you say, you want your organisation to be financially buoyant, you want it to be sustainable, and that can mean needing to diversify. So I'm really interested in BackUp's business model. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, you do it.
When I first got there, and you think, okay, the brief is, it's now March, and this contract that we have with the local authority is going to go out to tender this year, and it's the first time that they've done it.
Right, okay.
We were going to be the first service area, young people accommodation. Wow. And we're like, okay, yeah, I've done it in London, I'll do it here. So I started in March, the tender went live at the end of April, so I'm not even in post 8 weeks. No. And had to be submitted by August. I've not even completed my probation. And the life of the charity is in my hands. It was like,
pressure at all.
Yes, on with it. Anyway, we secured that in the December, but at the same time, I'm thinking, all eggs in one basket. What else can I do? Yeah. Got to diversify the income. So while that was going down one pathway, I just started absolutely banging in applications left, right and centre for different projects to, the National Lottery, different foundations, Children in Need, Comic Relief, all those big sort of players and funders. And then one of those came up at the same time. So we got something like £380,000 from the National Lottery to set up a brand new service.
Okay.
In addition to the contracts, and they came through within 2 months of each other. So in an 8-week period, I was 2ping in 6 staff, starting a new contract which tripled our organisation in size overnight, and then bringing in another team of 9 people to set up a completely separate project in a brand new building, and only just signed the ink only just dry on my probation report,
Wow.
But then that was it then. I spent sort of 12 months like consolidating that, making sure that our infrastructure matched the growth of the service delivery, because it just mushroomed. And also just to catch up with everybody and make sure the culture of the organisation didn't disappear.
Yeah.
So the diversifying income kind of all happened all at the same time. And whilst that was deliberate, the timing was unbelievable. And then it was like, well, actually, I need to do more of this. And so we sort of hit a period then where 4 years into that contract, we had a 10% cut applied because of austerity and different things that were happening with the government and everything and public sector funding. And I thought, well, actually, we're going to have to start thinking about not being overly reliant on grants and what have you. And it was just then that I started thinking about social enterprise, and I read about some of those sort of case studies in London that had been really successful. But I wanted to do something low risk, and initially we were talking about having a charity shop and things that other people have done, and did we want a coffee shop, and did we want this, and did we want... And I thought, not a chance. I don't want the responsibility of another building.
No, it's massive overhead.
It looked like hard work.
Yeah.
And I'm all for working smarter, not harder. I thought my life's hard enough as it is. What can I do? But also I thought, given that, because I'm quite a risk taker.
And I know that
I will take risks, but they have to be calculated. I'm not reckless.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, well, we could take a small risk, and if we ended up doing this thing around a coffee van, which is the thing I'd seen in London, that could work, because the worst case scenario is you spent a few grand on a vehicle and that's that, but you're not tied into a massive lease or a mortgage or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I met someone that I used to work with in the housing department who was now doing consultancy, and we were talking about things that BackUp could do. And he actually suggested and said, I've always thought a coffee van would be great in Bolton. He said, because I've spent years taking my 2 sons to cricket, week in, week out, freezing to death on the sidelines waiting, because they weren't in the same cricket team either. So we had to stay there for 2 lots of matches. And he said, you can't get a brew, you can't get a drink, there's no word, there's this, that and the other. And I thought that'd be fab. So that was the initial model. I wrote up a bit of a brief and a feasibility study and thought, I'll go to the board and see what they think, and we could use some reserves, invest in a vehicle, we could run it with volunteers and la la la. Bit naive, I suppose. But anyway, the principle was there, and the board said no. The cash flow didn't work. They thought it was still a big risk for us. We'd never done anything like that before. And it wasn't really my personal forte and who we were going to get to actually deliver this. And I thought, well, that's fair enough. And after the meeting, the chair of the board said to me, are you okay? I said, yeah. And he said, I'm just checking, everything all right? I said, honestly, yeah, I'm fine. He said, it's just that normally when we say no to you, you don't take it that well. So I started laughing and just said, no, I'm all right, because we will have a van. And he said, I don't doubt it. So it took me 2 years then.
Right, okay.
To then get to the stage where
So what did you do in that? Because I'm really interested in that bit, because you talked there about risk, and I think our sector, that it's a broad generalisation, but can be quite risk averse, I think, because there's much more at stake than just money for everybody working in our gig, isn't there? Everybody's concerned about what any impacts on the business are ultimately an impact on your service user. And so that sort of conversation around risk is quite big, I think, for people. So I'm really interested, and I think you picked up on something there around you have a positive attitude to risk, calculated risk. I think that's something. But so what happened in that couple of years then that changed the board's mind or brought them on the journey with you?
Well, I went to find someone who it was the thing, who did have that knowledge and expertise, because I certainly didn't, and found someone, and they told me that there were grants for applications available to apply to do that legwork. It wasn't for the actual project, but to help you with the initial work. So I applied for that and got that. I got £10,000. So I was able to pay someone then to come in and do cash flow forecasts and projections, some risk assessment, organisational risk register, and other things that would, be relevant if we were to do this, and how it would work, and what the income projections could be over a 3 and 5 year period. So he put that together and we presented it to the board together. And then they were like, well, okay, we're happy to proceed. So I applied to another route. So the SSE were advertising for places on a training course
Social entrepreneurs.
where you can get a grant then as well for completing this course. And that was another £10,000. So I applied for a place on that and was accepted. So that meant going to London 4 times over a year for a 2-day residential with other people in the sector, learning how to either develop a brand new social enterprise or improve one that they already had. And it was just like a gift, because there were people in that room who had never done anything like me around social enterprise. There were people who were running really successful ones but wanted to even diversify them or grow them or replicate them, and how to do that. And by completing the course, you didn't just come away with all these amazing contacts and you got your £10,000 when it was completed, so we could put that towards setting the project up. So we used some reserves then and bought the vehicle itself. And again, I was using this expert to help us to spec the vehicle, because honestly, I was just looking for some little, I don't know, Morris Minor, like they had in the Hovis adverts. I thought,
Oh, that's gorgeous.
that'd be ace. I'll have one of them, you know, driving them bolts in a Morris Minor. Not practical and, fits nothing in it. So we ended up with this beast of a vehicle that is a Japanese something, I don't even know what it's called, and we've had it for years. Can't get parts, can't do anything, but honestly, it keeps going. It's a little belter. And we've named him Charlie, and he's taken on a life of his own. So it was kitted out, wrapped in all our logos. It's quite distinctive. And we,
really is.
to keep the risk small, we stuck to, it's hot and cold drinks and it's cake. So I didn't want to be faffing about trying to get through the legal hoops around cooking and preparing food and stuff. Thought, we're not there yet. We've not got that expertise. And that's a whole different vehicle. And there was all sorts of expectations around that. So I thought, if we go for something basic, then it means that we can use bakers and cake makers who are local, and they're also in business. So I've been very clear from the off, and lots of people have come in and said, you could cut costs here. Such a business wants to donate cakes, somebody else wants to donate that. I'm not having packaged cakes. I want bespoke brownies and blondies and all the fancy Jaffa cake flavoured shizzle you can get your hands on, and the stuff that's really special. And I thought, no, I don't want it to be Mr. Kipling's that we're reselling. It's not on. And it doesn't kind of fit with the ethos of then trying to come back into that social arena, have social impact, and we're spending our money as a business back in Bolton with other businesses. So the coffee is Regio 42. It's the national brand, but a Bolton-based company.
And I didn't know that.
With a Bolton aura. And I thought, that's brilliant. So we've got the kind of kudos of that being, people know it's a decent drink. It's a great drink. Because the other thing I didn't want to do, I didn't want to end up with a van where people were buying pity brews. Nobody wants pity purchases.
Nobody wants a pity brew, and absolutely BackUp is totally not about that.
Absolutely not. I didn't want people thinking I've just bought a cup of tea and it tastes like, rank. I need to tip it in the nose. No, I'm not having that. So we've got the proper, fandangle going on with Regio, everything's brilliant there, and then really good cake. And I thought, let's stick with the quality. I'm going to stick with it. And we're a few years in now, and I've still managed to win that battle.
That's amazing.
Which even internally, a couple of colleagues have said, we could shave this much off. I thought, we could, but it'll be rubbish. And what about our partnerships?
And if you're selling it on a there's like a double brand there, isn't there? It's around supporting BackUp, but it's also about buying this great services that's going to provide something really nice to your event or conference or whatever,
So one of the things that was an enormous challenge at the start was we had a launch, with balloons and fancy cake, and the paper came and was doing an article, and this was the 13th of March 2020. And then we went into lockdown 10 days later. So we didn't trade. We weren't allowed to do anything. We had to put the person that we brought in to manage it on furlough. I mean, we didn't do that straight away because obviously we thought the lockdown was going to be 3 to 6 weeks.
As we all do.
So we were, limping along, and then it wasn't working. So what we decided to do then was try and, cut our cloth and we use the vehicle to transport food around the borough for our young people and for other projects.
Oh, wonderful.
So whenever people were, because we had lots of donations from lots of people providing bread and toiletries and curries, and all sorts of people were donating to us more than we could use.
Okay.
So I'd pick them up, drop what we were using off at our projects, and then go to other homeless hostels in the borough and drop them off. And people would just see the van.
Yeah.
And it's quite striking to look at. It is unusual and it makes a lot of noise. And I drove it through Horwich Town Centre one day and I thought, I'm going to roll backwards. I'm going to be like Fred Flintstone with my feet on the floor, trying to keep the van going uphill. And my granddaughter was with me. She was nearly crying. She said, this is so embarrassing. I said, just get out and walk and meet me at the top of the hill. It'd be quicker. But we got there, at about 8 miles an hour, but massive queue of traffic behind us. But I just thought it needs to be visible.
Yeah.
And people would beep and wave. And I thought, this is really bad. I felt like Scooby-Doo.
I like one of them cool Volkswagen drivers who like let on to everyone.
Honestly, I wanted a Volkswagen at the beginning because I'd seen them in Thailand where the side just lifts up and they serve you a cocktail on the side of the street. But again, not big enough, and they're really expensive. Yeah. But anyway, you never know. I'm still dreaming about that. So, we got through COVID and we were able to trade then because we were able to trade safely. People could queue once they'd come out with all the regulations about the distance and cleanliness and hygiene and what we had to do to be able to serve a drink and the food and that. So we were fine and we got going. But it probably took us another year after COVID to really get going. Now, what didn't happen was my original vision around it being at sporting events, because that was going to be my other kind of social impact thing, that we would be where children are, at the side of Leverhulme Park or Moss Bank or wherever. It just never got going, that, because I didn't understand the intricacies of the sports organisations that run it.
Sure.
They're a beast, and
it's like a world.
And it isn't. You can't just wreck up there and put your sign out. It don't work like that. So what we ended up doing then was almost pivoting the van itself and asking people to book us for events. And that is where it started to pick up. Right. So now, 5 years in, we've got regular bookings. We're at Park Run every other weekend. We go to community events. We are there at the food festival. We're there for Ironman. So the big sort of Bolton events, we always get a booking now. But that took a couple of years for us to even be able to say.
It's interesting how long it's taking it for people to realise this. And you have to be constantly saying, don't you, here we are, don't forget about us.
Now, fortunately for us, we got a bit of a leg up with people like Bolton at Home, who sponsored us to take their pitch at the food festival. So that's how we kind of got in the first time. But once people saw it fully operational and saw what it was for, nobody can argue that the concept is a good one and people really like it. And I think, we've used this terminology about it's coffee that counts, make it count and that kind of language. And people do like that.
It's really tangible, isn't it? You buy a brew, a good brew.
Yeah.
And that contributes to supporting these young people in the community that need it, and it's, there's something, I love what you said about how you were really clear that you wanted it to be something that was simple and was achievable. Yeah. It's that point of the arrow bit when we're in business planning in it, that actually you've got a really simple, saleable product that people understand. It's the social impact's really clear, and that makes it a really easy sell to your customers.
It does. And what the absolute icing on the cake, pardon the pun, has been that the volunteers who do work on the van have been people from organisations. I mean, CVS have volunteered on the van as part of their own social impact. People from Boot Coaching and Consulting, they've volunteered. Bolton at Home staff, people from Watson's, from Seddons. Lots of people come and volunteer and give the time up. But the other volunteers are our residents,
and that's just
our young people that live on the scheme or that may have recently moved on. And the bonus around that is that they're learning some employability skills, some job readiness stuff, even just basics about being somewhere on time, being clean, learning how to handle money, deal with customers, use the machinery and everything. That's great. And, just be able to interact and work as a team and understand the impacts of business. So it's really good. But those softer skills around, just turning up, being a reliable member of a staff team, and having an impact has been outstanding, really. Unquantifiable in some respects, because for some, you know, we know the background of that person, and we're not going to shout about that because we don't want to out them, and it's not our story to tell. But, you know, we have had some young people who, you know, would have been referred to us at point A. They've come in, they've had some horrific trauma. We've got young people that have been, you know, trafficked. We've got people that have witnessed a murder. We've got people that have been exploited, that have been used for drugs, you know, county lines. There's all sorts of issues with young people, and they come into us and they're frightened to death. They don't make eye contact. They won't take a cap off. And then we get to a stage where, you know, we suggest they might want to go on the van, and they just think, oh, I can't talk to people. I'm not talking to anybody. But it takes time. So the great thing about the van is because it's ours, we can do what we want with it. So we take it to our projects and we'll set it up outside. So we'll say to the young people, this isn't for the public, this is just for you. Come in and have a go on the machinery.
That's amazing.
Stand inside and see what it feels like to be looking through the window, and sit in the front seat. We'll drive you around, you know, we'll take you for a drive or whatever. They can't drive it, obviously. But it's that kind of hand-holding, coaching, reassurance that isn't just, oh my God, I've got to turn up onto the town hall square. I've never been on it before. I don't know who I'm going to be on with. And what if I can't do it? What if I can't make the machine work or whatever? And they can. It's a push button machine. We've deliberately done that. And it's brilliant. And
there's just so many layers to what that enterprise vehicle gives to the organisation, isn't there?
And even though we knew that in the planning stage, I didn't realise it would be this good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. All those kind of accidental benefits.
So I'm absolutely chuffed to bits now to be thinking through that this year that we're in, this calendar year 2025, is that we're going to get a new van.
Okay.
It's time for a new vehicle. I'm getting a new toy.
Okay.
And it's very exciting. And I think that's because we've been able to demonstrate internally, like with our board, but also with our different stakeholders, about the impact that the van has had, both on the young people who've worked on it, the money that's been brought in because it's now making a profit that goes back into the charity, and the visual, I suppose, profiling it's given us as a charity, because so many people come up for a brew and they'll say, what is this? Who are you? What do you do?
All those
I've never heard of it.
Enables,
You just think, are you joking? I've never heard of paper. Come on.
Do you walk around with
catch up? But it's been a great way of marketing and promoting the charity overall. And the other thing it's done, which has been a little bonus, is get some of our colleagues out of the building.
Okay.
And you know, do you want to have a stint on the van? We've built it into our induction so that when any new staff come into the organisation, they have to do a session on the van if we've got a booking. Which when I first thought of it, I just thought, I am going to get lynched. You're going to be like, you're joking, aren't you? But I thought, it's free staff in this. Crack on.
But it's all those conversations that they will then be part of, won't it? About you.
But they can say to young people, I've done it actually, and this is what it's like. You know, and it's fun or it's whatever. And it is fun. And I've done it. I took my granddaughter, I've had her volunteering on it. We've done some like community road shows and in different parts of town, and other people have done it.
It's on my list. My colleagues have done it. It's on my list of things to do. I've just not quite got around to it yet, but it's
it's fun.
It's just a great.
It's tiring.
And it's just such a great project in so many ways. And I think when you were talking about sort of how you set it up and all those different inputs that you had to set it up, it's like Proper Good. Part of what we're aiming to do with Proper Good is replicate some of that stuff that School for Social Entrepreneurs do, around the opportunity to connect with other people who are trying to do similar things. And that's what our network's aiming to do and our workshops, and to connect people into that kind of funding. The other bit that Proper Good has going on is a social investment. I sort of alluded to it slightly at the beginning. And for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what social investment is, it's repayable loan funding, but that has been specifically designed for social enterprises. So for an organisation like yours who's looking to try something new, grow the business, diversify, grow their staff team. But again, because of that bit that we talked about before around risk, often organisations kind of come across it and dismiss it immediately or aren't aware of it. I'm just interested whether that's something that's ever been on your radar. Is it something you can ever see in your future?
That's how we funded the van. Right, okay. So I did it through Homeless Link, who were like you, but on a national level, hosting the money for the government to deliver social investment across the UK. England and Wales, and I applied for that. So it was part loan, part grants. I think it was 15% grants and then 85% loan. So we got 60 grand, I think, on the loan, which paid for the first year staffing costs, the vehicle itself, all the equipment and everything, and we paid that back over 3 years. And as I mentioned, we sort of hit COVID straight away, but they came to us and said, we're going to freeze the payments for 6 months while you can't trade. So that was an absolute godsend.
Yeah, and we hear that like all social investors have that flexibility built into their funds.
But we paid the loan back. We're debt free now. It's been paid off.
That's amazing.
And we're making a profit, and we have been for just over a year. So it's paid for itself. But it as you mentioned before, it's not just about the money. It's been about impact. It's been about reputation. It's been about helping us to connect. And as a result of that van going somewhere and being seen by somebody, they then came back and want to build us a building.
Wow.
So if that isn't impact, I don't know what is.
That's phenomenal, isn't it?
That's a 3-year project, but it's something for the future.
Yeah.
And it's because the van put us on their radar.
Wow. And that's that simple trading model of this is who we are, this is what we do. You can come and buy something that offers them multiple access points to back up, isn't it? Like, that is massive impact.
I mean, I used to love going to Bolt Fest. The tribute. I just loved it. I went every year, loved it. I was gutted when it finished. And we were just setting up at the time that they were winding down, but we didn't know that then. And I just kept thinking, oh God, I want to be at Bolt Fest. And that would be like my dream come true, because I just loved the fun day of it. So when that finished and it was never coming back, we set up our own. So we set up B-Fest last year for BackUp. At Bolton Arena, all day music, and I thought, right, finally got an event where we can have our van. And we couldn't take the van.
No,
it was already booked out. Somebody booked it. I've been gazumped by my own customers.
Some of your own success.
Anyway, it's on this year, so we're back this year.
When is it?
26th of July.
Right, brilliant, at Bolton Arena.
Yeah, all day. So we've got like Beatles tribute act, Elvis.
Can kids come?
Oasis. Oh yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, it's family orientated all day. It's belted. So the van will be there.
Yeah.
I'm pulling rank. And it's like
out in the dark.
Come on. Yeah. So, but that's the type of thing where it does well and people see it and think, if you're going to make a choice between this van or that van, that van's having impact.
And I think, and you said when we were first talking that when you first came to this idea initially, it was kind of there weren't as many of them around. It wasn't as tested, but there are now, aren't there? Coffee vans, gin vans, that kind of stuff. But like you say, that bit, and again, it's that simplicity of the message. It's really obvious. If somebody buys that from you, they know what they're getting and they know what they're investing in.
I mean, we've been hired for private events. We go to businesses who book us for a staff away day, and they pay for the cost. The member of staff just come and we serve the drinks and they don't pay. Or we can go to a public event where the public just pay for the brews as they go, sort of thing. There's different ways of being able to use the van or hire it.
In terms of social value, that's just massive, isn't it? And if there's a business looking to sort of how they can meet their social value requirements or go beyond that.
And we've had a few inquiries recently where we have been booked and we can't be in 2 places at once.
No.
So I go to another coffee van and say, somebody's looking, we're too busy. And they're a private business, but it's a woman on her own.
And again, that is, so much of what you said totally sort of shows that the power of collaboration and connection, and how through this vehicle you're able to connect in other.
Well, I'm hoping that if she ends up in the same position once she gets going, that she'll do the same for us. And I'm sure she will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. It's a beautiful thing. We talked a little bit before you were talking about the impacts of the van. We've talked about the impacts of the van on the business, and a little bit about the impacts on the young people of being able to work on the van. I was wondering if you had like a story that sort of showcased the impacts either of BackUp or of Charlie. Just because we've talked a lot about the business, haven't we? It'd be wonderful to talk a little bit about the impacts of BackUp.
Yeah, we had
because I know that it's massive.
It is. We had a young person that had volunteered on the van while he was one of our residents, and he enjoyed it, and that was that, and he moved on into his own flat, and that was that, and he still wanted to volunteer. And then the following year, the DWP were launching the Kickstart programme for apprenticeships for young people, and well, actually people of all ages, I think it was. And so I went to them and said, could I apply for this for an apprentice for the van? A paid apprentice. Anyway, yeah. So long story short, we did that. We secured that funding. We advertised, and he applied because you had to apply through the job centre. You had to be in receipt of UC to be able to apply, universal credit. He rang and said, I'm going to apply for this. Is that okay? I'm like, yeah, fill your boots. So 3 or 4 young people applied, came in and got interviewed. He got the job. So he came back then from being a resident to being our colleague and working with us for 6 months and working on the van. So during that time, we used the time obviously to, get as many bookings for the van and use the time wisely. But we also then worked with him around, his CV writing, getting his interview skills ready. We did mock interviews with him. He came to all sorts of different meetings with us. He wasn't just on the van. And he ended up going off and getting a full-time job in hospitality. So, he was working in catering, and that's where he went after that. So great.
You couldn't ask for a more virtuous circle there, could you? If somebody's come at a time in need, been supported, come back, and then off. I mean, that's just beautiful.
That's just the textbook roots of what you would want for
exactly.
somebody.
Absolutely.
It's the vehicle is the vehicle to success.
Yeah, no, indeed, it's wonderful. And it's interesting you used the word success there. Was it like, how do you measure success as a leader, as an organisation, but as a leader? Like, what are your internal measures of success?
Flipping heck, this is a podcast all on its own, isn't it?
In 3 minutes, if you could just sum that up, that would be wonderful.
Sweet mother of God. Well, for the van, the measure of success has been the people impact for me.
Yeah.
And the case studies and the fact that, I know that person X, Joe Bloggs over there, in 3 months before was not speaking, not communicating, possibly at risk of being sent to prison or whatever, and is now volunteering on the van with a view to looking at employment. It's also bringing in between £20,000 and £25,000 unrestricted income into our organisation every year, which
unrestricted income is just golden, in it.
Mega.
Yeah.
In terms of BackUp in its widest sense, success for us is massive because it can be something as small as a young person going from not making eye contact to making eye contact, right through to somebody who leaves us to move into halls of residence, to go to university or to go to work. We have got 9 young people that were on our scheme at some point in the last 33 years who now work for us. And 2 of them are project managers.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, one's in her 30s, one's in her 40s. Both the 2 managers are referred to. So it's been some years since they were on the scheme. One of them, who was, when she was a resident, was my resident. So when I was a support worker in 1998, I was her support worker. Wow. So when I came back in 2012, she applied. She was already here volunteering and doing a placement for uni. Wow. And we're like, wow, I cannot believe you're here. And she's like, wow, I cannot believe you're here. And we're both still there. So that's amazing. And then there's another 5 or 6 young people who've come back and worked for us at some point and then gone on to do other careers. So one's gone on to do mental health nursing, another one's a midwife, another one's a teacher, another one's a registered manager of an Ofsted children's home. So just different, we've been part of their career path.
Yeah, and it just speaks doesn't it, about the safety that you've created there and the esteem that you've built for people.
I mean, that's success for me. But in terms of bread and butter success, day in, day out, our purpose is to make sure that young people are not homeless, that they're not at risk, and that when they're with us, they're equipped with the skills, practical and emotional, to be able to move on and live independently, and that they get rehoused. And we have a 90% success rate. So everything else falls out of that. All the reduction in domestic abuse because they're not homeless, the improvements in mental health, better finances, less drug use, no drug use, whatever it is, all of that stems from living in stable accommodation and not having the uncertainty of possibly, we've got young people that come to us and they've had sex with someone just for somewhere to stay. They've dropped drugs off somewhere just knowing that they could stay at a flat. They're taking massive risks. And putting themselves under pressure because they just don't know what else to do. And the rough sleeping is increasing at the moment as well. So
did you say that at an event recently around?
And it's always been sort of 5-6% because young people tend to come straight to us after the incident or whatever the trigger is for the homelessness. But we're at 22% now that have slept rough before they come to us.
Yeah.
And that's changed in a 3-year period. I just think, what is going on?
Yeah. And just
So,
what you said there, how all the other outcomes
Yeah.
fall out of being able to provide that
Yeah.
stable place to
Yeah.
stay. I mean, I know it's not a small investment, but that investment in that one area, the
Yeah.
impacts on that for all the other services
Massive.
we need to wrap around those
Huge
young
ripple
people.
effect.
Yeah, massively.
You know,
so.
if you think that then that one thing, and, you know, like at the end of next month, we're taking a group of young people to London, to the House of Lords, because an ex-resident of ours contacted me through LinkedIn, and they are now the private secretary to an MP in Northampton.
Wow.
And they told me that they had bumped into the Bolton MP at work
Yeah.
and had a chat and said, oh, I used to be at BackUp, do you know Maura? Blah, 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 blah. And do you fancy bringing some young people down for the day?
Amazing.
So we're going to go down when Kirith is in, our MP, and then also catch up with our ex-residents who will talk to the young people and say...
And that's everything, isn't
This
it?
was
That
me
modelling.
8 years ago.
Yeah, that's everything. Seeing yourself represented in those roles,
Yeah.
in those parts of life is just everything. And
Yeah.
you clearly do so much
Yeah.
as an organisation beyond providing a house for
I know.
people. This whole wraparound piece is just
I know, well,
phenomenal.
they sent me a message and said, have you got any money to bring young people to London? Well, I'll find it.
Find someone.
We're coming.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
that experience of being, you know, and in terms of young people wanting to then connect with democracy
yeah.
and all of that. That's amazing.
So we've got 5 young people that are part of our like service user focus group, if you like. They run a meeting, they chair it, they set the agendas, they feed it up into our trustee board, and so all of them are going to come with us.
That's
and have a
amazing.
little day out and catch up with our friend down there and our local MP.
Yeah.
So it'll be fab.
That's wonderful. I'm mindful that we're probably getting towards the end of time now, but I wanted to ask you some questions about leadership, because you are obviously, I would say, a strong leader who's got, you know, you've said yourself, calculated risk, you welcome that, and clearly it's working really well for your organisation, having taken that punt on the van, having had the vision to be able to take that to the board and make it attractive, pull in that support that you need, because you've been very clear about saying you've not done it all, you know, you've collaborated, you've sought the right collaboration when you sought the right collaboration when you've needed it. But I'm really interested in whether you've got any advice for any current or aspiring leaders in our sector around kind of any sort of hints, tips, what it takes, how do you care for yourself?
Yeah.
How do you, and also I'd be really interested in what's the worst advice you were ever given, because I think the world is abound with advice, isn't it? Oh, the best and worst advice, maybe we could soften it up with the best and worst.
Be very carefully out there.
But you might watch
Some
this.
like libelous situation I could end up in. Right, well, in terms of leadership then, I think that the best thing that I've benefited from in the last few years was accessing a coach.
Yeah.
And probably 8-9 years ago, I met someone at a networking event, and she was a coach, an executive coach, and I thought, from the minute she started speaking, I was just hanging on her every word. I thought, this woman is so engaging, so motivational and insightful, and I thought she was doing a keynote speech at this event, and I spoke to her afterwards, and then I thought, how do I get to be one of her clients? Well, it took a while because, my God, it was expensive, but that's because we're in this charity mindset, because we don't spend any money.
Yeah.
And then I had to sort of have a word with myself and think, it's a bit like the van. You've got to make certain investments to progress.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to her, I said to her, I want to be more strategic. I don't know why I thought I wasn't strategic, but I did. Mm-hmm. But she made me realise, actually, I am.
I'm going to say that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, because that's what I said. She said, why do you want to do coaching? I want to be more strategic. Oh, okay, therefore implying I'm not. And by working with her, I thought, I am. Yeah. And I'm on fire.
Yeah. You're smashing it, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was really good, because what I was then able to do was look at upskilling other people around me, and business continuity, and succession planning, and things I hadn't thought about before. So that was brilliant for me. So I think, if you can get a coach or a mentor, and these things don't have to cost. It could be somebody that you've got who is already an ally, who is happy to be a critical friend or whatever, but use it. And I think we all need allies in the sector, because being the leader of whatever organisation, it's very isolating.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that you just think, you can't go into work and sort of say, I'm riddled with anxiety because I don't know if we're going to get this funding, or, if this happens, this is going to be a disaster, or what. There's none of that. I mean, I don't think like that anyway, but even if you were having those negative thoughts, like when we've been waiting in the past for a tender for Bolton, because I've done 3 now in 12 years and we've won all 3.
Well done.
So we've kept it within BackUp, but every time it goes out to open competition. So you've got to apply, you've got to go through that process. And not once will anybody ever tell you that I've ever said, if we don't, this is the contingency plan. It's like, no, we will.
Yeah. When we do.
When we do. I've never, ever used any other language. And I truly believed it.
Yeah.
And I meant it. And what I've done over the years then is actually mould the structure of BackUp and make a business model that makes us stronger every time we come to that position again.
Yeah.
Because we are the specialists in Bolton, and it isn't just about having the contract. We want to be the provider for young people, because we know that if there is a risk, if someone else won it, they wouldn't care as much. And not that they'd be rubbish. I'm not rubbishing other providers.
Of course.
But if somebody comes in from outside of town, for example, and just sticks to the brief and sticks to the price, the service would be very different to what it is now.
I mean, what you're wrapping around that accommodation support is phenomenal. Like, and as you see, you've got people who've been with you who were previous people living in accommodation who are now working for. There's, as you say, somebody coming in from outside of the town they just couldn't replicate that, could they?
No, they couldn't.
Straight away.
No.
So the value that
no,
you
they
bring
couldn't.
to that is
We've never lost
massive.
that value base, and so but back to your question then about leaders, I think as well, try and invest in yourself, even if it's time to listen to a podcast, go to some networking, take your blinkers off and come outside. There's always time to do the work in the office where you've just got to have your head down, writing bids, supporting staff, whatever it is you're doing, making sure that the money's there, balancing books and all that. But it's equally important to make sure that the profile of your organisation is high, that it's relevant, that people know about you, because you are not going to diversify income sat at your laptop.
No, indeed. And
It's
that
very
bit,
difficult.
isn't it, between working in the business and working on the business.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're trying through Proper Good to have support in place that gives space. You used the phrase critical friend earlier, and I often say that that's what we can be for a leader, because we have organisations that are just starting up, and we have organisations like yourselves who've been around a long time. And I think at any stage of that, like you say, everybody needs a critical friend. It can be really isolating being on your own. So that is really what we're trying to replicate and offer for people who perhaps don't have the funds, like you say, to buy it in. And we can recommend people to those who perhaps do have the funds.
There are always people looking to, people who might be doing a qualification in coaching and mentoring at level 7, so you're talking high level delivery, are always looking for people to do their hours so they can pass the qualification. So if you've got no money, but you've got some time, you might be able to find somebody who'll do the coaching with you, and you'll still benefit from somebody who's got loads of experience.
And that's definitely something that facilitates.
I did that when I had my qualification. I put something on LinkedIn saying, I'm doing my ILM level 7. Does anybody want to be my guinea pig? This is what you'll get. It's free. Did it. 47 replies.
I bet you're absolutely inundated.
I thought, God, I only need 2.
Doing me of a fries, you're off.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy, but I got there.
It shows the level of need for it, though. Because you're right. It's a really unique position leading an organisation, and I think that's wonderful advice.
The worst advice was given. It wasn't so much an advice, but it was you'll never do it.
Okay.
You won't be able to do it.
Okay.
And twice somebody said that.
Yeah.
Your face doesn't fit.
Okay.
You're too fat. I've been told I was too fat for a job. Can you believe it?
Oh my God.
And you swear too much.
Okay. Well, we know that's.
And I thought, okay, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll effing show you. In fact,
Absolutely.
So I've been told, and I just thought no. And that the reason I'm mentioning that is because of a lot of conversations around leadership come back to authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a difficult balance. It's a difficult balance to make sure that you don't lose yourself.
Yeah.
But that you keep the essence of the organisation, because it is about the organisation. It's not you.
Yeah.
it's about the you cannot become bigger than the organisation. That's where it gets into problems. And we've seen these cases, you know, haven't we, blow up on the front page of the Daily Mail where it's got too big, egos have got too big. It has to be about the organisation. And I'm so happy to say that at BackUp, we all, our decision making, our flow charts, our process maps always bring us back to a young person. Where is the young person in this? Where are they in the decision making? Where are they at the end?
Yeah.
And we've deliberately done that. Has been a deliberate act, and it's what's well for us.
Yeah, and I can see that, and it feels like there's something in it's what's come across to me a lot in everything that you've said is that, and that perhaps that comes from to some extent that lots of people in your organisation have lived experience of that service, either as a resident or as somebody who's worked in the service. And I think we see that a lot in our sector, don't we? And that's the beauty of our sector and why such great innovation comes from it and such brilliant service delivery, because often the leaders do have lived experience. And so that's a lovely point that you've drawn out there about, because often if you've got lived experience of that, you might present differently to other people in the boardroom. And finding that balance between professionalism and professional boundaries and authenticity is really important. And I think like you embody it really well.
You know, it's an actual skill. And, you know, when I've done work on leadership with people, either in BackUp or outside of BackUp, I've sort of said, you know, the skills are akin to some circus skills, you know, like being on a tightrope, for example, which is what you're saying here. It's a massive balancing act to make sure that you keep the organisation at the forefront of what you're doing, but that you've got enough ego to be able to stand up and speak and lobby. And actually, I'm going to call that out. You know, if you're going to be, there's lots of leadership qualities that people need, but you have to have a bit of everything. You have to know when to shut up. And actually, this is not my fight. But you also equally have to know to say, well, hang on a minute. Oh, no. No, we're putting our hat in the ring here. And you know, I'll take this on.
It's massive, isn't it?
It is,
Massive.
But it's ace.
I can see you love it.
I do love it,
life. And you know, BackUp's just flying in it, and it's just wonderful, which in turn means all them people are doing it.
I mean, we're one of those organisations that you wish you could talk yourself out of being needed. But that said, it is flying and we're having great outcomes, and, you know, we're privileged to be able to do it. Well,
Bolton's privileged to have, so if anybody's listening or watching and they'd like to connect with BackUp in some way, they might like to donate some of their time, some resources, just find out more about you. How can they get in touch?
Well, you know, we've got a website, obviously, which is www.backup, BACKUP, -charity.org.uk. Not very straightforward, I'm sorry. You know, we've got offices all across Bolton, but the website is probably the starting point. We're on all the socials, and it'll either be BackUp Charity or BackUp Northwest. I couldn't get the same name on every single one, but it'll say BackUp somewhere. So don't get us mixed up with the spinal injuries charity in Croydon.
That's a whole different conversation.
And somebody else
happened.
Don't give them our money. But no, another great charity, but just not us. So we're BackUp Northwest.
Brilliant. That's great. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. And if anybody listening or watching is interested in Proper Good and the support that we've got on offer, you can get in touch with us by emailing propergood@boltoncvs.org.uk or have a look on the Bolton CVS website, and we've got some stuff on there. Thank you so much for being our first guest. It's been a wonderful chat. This time has flown by. I've got a timer going and I've not looked at it yet. I dread to think what time we're on.
3.5 hours.
3 days later. Thanks so much, Maura.
Thank you.
Cheers.